Welcome to Energy Matters, presented by New Jersey Policy Institute. I'm your host, Jeanette Hoffman. Thanks for joining us. Republican candidate for governor Jack Ciattarelli is here to talk about his vision for New Jersey's energy future. Elissa from the New Jersey Civil Justice Institute discusses the impact of a lawsuit that will raise your energy rates. We're also joined by Henning, president of New Jersey Utility Association, who will discuss why our electric bills are so high. But first, here's Jack Ciattarelli. I'm here with New Jersey Republican gubernatorial candidate Jack Ciattarelli. Jack, thanks so much for joining the show today.
Great to be here, Jeanette. Thank you.
No problem. I mean, there's so much to talk about when it comes to energy. Rising prices, biggest issue in this year's gubernatorial candidate. Everybody's talking about it. It was in your first campaign ad, and it was in your opponent's first campaign ad. So I just wanted to ask you, what are you hearing on the campaign trail from New Jersey voters when it comes to energy prices?
No matter where I go around the state, this is the first thing out of people's mouths, whether you're a homeowner, a tenant, a business owner, particularly a business owner that has an electricity-intensive type business.
Yeah.
They're seeing 20, 30, 40% increase in the bills, and they're angry. And so my opponent is blaming this on President Trump. President Trump has nothing to do with this. It's had everything to do with Phil Murphy's failed energy policies.
Speaking of the Energy Master Plan, we know that your opponent supports Governor Murphy's failed progressive energy master plan that caused electric bills, heating bills to rise dramatically across the state. We know that Governor Murphy opposed building more natural gas pipelines that could have kept prices down. And now progressives are pushing this so-called climate superfund legislation that legal experts say, first of all, it's unconstitutional, but second of all, it would only increase fuel prices even more. So that being said, if you were governor, how would you combat all of these things that are driving energy prices even higher in New Jersey?
First of all, what my opponent has proposed is not only not feasible, it's illegal. And if it was that easy, I think Murphy would have done it a long time ago because he knows how upset people are. Here's what I can do on day one. I can pull us out of the regional greenhouse gas initiative. Reggie's been a total failure. Our electricity is only more expensive, the air is no cleaner, and that saves us $500 million a year, $500 million in ratepayer dollars. I'm pulling us out of Reggie on day one. Second thing I do is open up all those natural gas-fired facilities that Phil Murphy closed down. Let's repurpose them. Let's get the natural gas in there. That's a rational bridge to the future. I'll expand our nuclear footprint in South Jersey. And I think we can accelerate solar. But let me be clear. There'll be no wind farms off our Jersey shore. People don't want them. Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, male, female, for all different reasons. Nobody wants those wind farms. And by the way, it's a very expensive form of electricity. And in Pennsylvania, the Democratic governor is burning coal, natural gas, just opened up another nuclear plant. They've got the juice. We don't. So not only are their bills lower than ours, which is wrong, they're getting the business we're not, including the data centers that are needed to support AI. That's an economic development opportunity for New Jersey. That should be right here in our state.
So your opponent says she'll declare a state of emergency on day one and she will freeze electric rates. But even Governor Murphy says that's impossible. She won't be able to do it. She also says she will go after the grid operator, PJM. What is your opinion on PJM? Are they responsible for increasing energy rates?
They can only sell what is provided to them. They're a nonprofit exchange. Here's the facts of the matter. When Phil Murphy took office, we were an electricity exporter. We didn't need PJM. Now we're an electricity importer because he shut down those 6 plants, didn't expand nuclear, didn't accelerate solar, and is dependent totally on wind, which never came to be. So now we have to depend on the exchanges. So I want us to be an electricity exporter again, not an importer. We do that by burning more natural gas, expanding nuclear, and the like. So, but all you have to do is look to Pennsylvania to see a difference between two governors, and yet they're both Democratic. So, but listen, this isn't the president's fault. It's not PJM's fault. It's Phil Murphy's failed energy policy. That's where the blame lies here. And she supported all those policies.
Yeah, and not to mention Pennsylvania also has lower business taxes, which makes it more attractive for employers to go over there as well.
Absolutely.
So speaking of New Jersey once being an exporter of electricity, now we're being an importer, what specific steps would you take? You talked about bringing natural gas back. What other emerging technology would you bring to New Jersey?
Well, listen, the rational bridge to the future is natural gas, nuclear, and yes, to a certain degree, solar. That's the natural bridge to the future. Whenever it is the future shows up, whether it's fusion energy, carbon capture, hydrogen cell technology, the micro-modular nuclear we're hearing more and more about, but the future is yet to arrive. So what are we going to do here and now? Okay, we need a rational energy policy, but I'm going to do something else. I don't think energy policy should be coming out of the DEP or the BPU. Those are regulatory agencies. I'm going to recreate something Tom Kean Sr. had. We need a Department of Energy. I don't need 100 or 200 people. All I need is a dozen policy experts to work in partnership with me as to what our energy policy should be. And I'm telling you right now, there's going to be emphasis on natural gas, nuclear, and solar rooftops, particularly on our commercial buildings.
Yeah, and you've pledged to clean house at the BPU and scrap the equity-based pricing that bills electricity based on income rather than usage. So how would your reforms ensure fair rates while still protecting the most vulnerable populations from unaffordable utility costs?
Well, let me tell you what isn't fair. Equity pricing. My
Yeah.
goodness, we're now going to base your monthly electric bill on how much you make, not how much you use.
Yeah.
Even people at the lowest rungs of the income ladder don't agree with that one. They see the inequity in the equity pricing plan. Listen, what the BPU is trying to do right now, it's called CYA. They know the administration's in trouble. They know their candidate is in trouble. The people at the BPU are fierce advocates for wind. New Jersey doesn't want wind. They continue to jam it down our throats. Their newest energy master plan revision has great emphasis on wind. It's
the
not
same
going to
old.
happen.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful to the president for putting a temporary halt on wind farms off the Jersey Shore. I'll make that permanent.
Well, let's talk about something else that the president put a halt on, and that is Governor Murphy's EV mandate, right? He halted that. It was piggybacked on Gavin Newsom's EV mandate in California. Now, Mikey Sherrill, your opponent, she voted against halting the EV mandate for New Jersey. So what is your position on that? Do you believe that we should have an EV mandate?
Yeah. So let's think about this for a second. We have an energy shortage right now, specific electricity shortage, which is why monthly bills are going through the roof. But then we're going to have an EV mandate with more electric cars that require more electricity. Mm-hmm. Where's that electricity going to come from? Even the Delaware governor, who's a Democrat, just pulled his state out of the EV mandate. It doesn't make any sense. The markets will dictate when you buy an EV car. The markets will dictate how you're going to heat your home. The markets will dictate what kind of appliances you're going to buy. I'm not mandating that. The markets will dictate when that happens, and that's a consumer choice. It should not be mandated by government.
And not to mention, experts have said our grid is just not ready for all that demand. So there's an effort to bring manufacturing back to New Jersey. Speaking of businesses that use a lot of electricity and energy, how would a Ciattarelli administration work to lower costs for these businesses, given their emphasis on using so much energy?
Nobody's going to come to New Jersey unless we have the juice. I mean, in the old days, Jeanette, businesses would look at things like just taxes and regulations. Today, they're looking at taxes, regulations, labor pool, and electricity. And we're starting to suck wind in all four. But we can turn that around with a new administration, and we will. I have to make sure that we can grow our economy. The current governor is trying to tax his way out of fiscal calamity. I'm going to responsibly reduce the size and cost of state government to afford a tax cut for individuals and businesses. But make no mistake, you can't cut your way out either. We've got to grow our economy. And you're not going to be able to do that unless you have electricity and a willing and able labor pool.
And speaking of mandates, we talked about the EV mandate. There's another mandate, and it's in legislation. It was in the Energy Master Plan, but there's also a bill pending in the Senate that would require home heating to be electrified. This means not only paying more for our electric, but having to convert all our appliances and homes to run on electric. That means gas stoves will be no more. We'll have to have everything electric. Do I need to ask you your position on that?
So, I mean, think about this for a
Yeah.
second. We have an electricity shortage in New Jersey, which is why, as an importer now, we have to go to exchanges to compete with other states to buy it. That's driving up the cost of electricity. If we create more demand for electricity, what's going to happen to the price? As long as we're an importer, the price is going up. And this just isn't a rational transition to the future. So we're not going to force any of these things with any of these kind of mandates. Again, I'm going to make sure we've got a rational transition to the future. Natural gas, nuclear, solar on commercial rooftops. Let's create the juice. Let's lower the bill by pulling out of RGGI.
Yep.
The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative saves $500 million a year for ratepayers. And I could pull this out on day one.
That's a lot of money, and New Jersey consumers really need it right now.
Right now.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for coming on the show. We wish you all the best of luck, and we hope you'll come back soon.
I'm looking forward to it, Jeanette. Thank you.
I'm joined by Elissa Frank, president of New Jersey Civil Justice Institute. Elissa, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Jeanette.
Well, first, tell me about New Jersey Civil Justice Institute. What does your organization do, and how does it benefit New Jersey taxpayers?
Yes, of course. So NJCJI, which is what we like to call it, serves to ensure that people are not blindsided by needless and very expensive lawsuits. We envision a civil justice system that is fair, balanced, and affordable for everybody. We benefit taxpayers because when businesses especially are blindsided by expensive lawsuits, this just doesn't hit the business. It also hits people in their households every single day. So while the business would be paying, people are paying as well.
So how are they paying through taxes or the prices of like groceries, or how do consumers pay more?
Right, so when businesses are blindsided by lawsuits or by bad laws, what happens is they have no choice but to raise prices, slow hiring, and eventually that's going to hit our consumers and our households right in their pockets.
Yeah, and we certainly don't need higher prices in this economy.
We do not in New Jersey.
Well, your organization recently wrote an interesting column about something called the Climate Superfund Act. The Climate Superfund Act is being promoted by some misguided groups in several states, including New Jersey. This act would assign retroactive financial penalties on energy companies. Some people say that this could raise energy rates if costs are passed on to ratepayers. I think the last thing New Jersey needs is higher energy rates right now. So do you believe, is this one of those things, do you think this is a fair policy, or is it simply another hidden tax on New Jersey families?
We think this goes way too far. I would call it a hidden tax on New Jersey families. To your earlier point, we're already seeing that energy costs are going up, 20% this summer, possibly another 5% the next summer. This is going to hit our households directly. Now, there was a study that showed that this bill, if passed and followed the same trajectory as other states, it would actually cost our companies in New Jersey that pay New Jersey sales tax up to $75 billion. This isn't just going on to those companies. This is eventually going to be passed on to households. So we're going to see this affect transportation costs, pass-through costs through ways of contracts, and other costs as well, like energy.
Yeah, and that's certainly something that no New Jersey ratepayer needs right now.
No, absolutely not.
Well, I know that a state judge recently dismissed a similar lawsuit brought by the Attorney General, saying that states aren't really suited to set global climate policy, and this bill actually does nothing to lower greenhouse gas emissions. So why do you think that lawmakers are now trying to accomplish this? Basically, it's a money grab through legislation when the courts have already rejected it.
Right, Jeanette, so what they're doing is, this is a national trend that we've seen from some of our peer states. New York passed similar legislation, I believe, and in New York, they're actually facing a lot of lawsuits to undo what was done by way of this legislation, or similar legislation. It's just a national trend, and I see why lawmakers would be interested in it, but it's just not good policy.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that sounds good, and it's kind of like a copycat bill from other states.
Exactly.
Well, supporters will say that the bill promotes accountability and environmental justice, but experts say that, as you said, it raises household energy costs at a time when bills are already through the roof. So I guess the end goal is, how should New Jersey balance climate goals with affordability?
Yeah, so New Jersey needs to find a better way to achieve the goal of environmental justice than by putting this on our taxpayers and on our businesses, who are job creators for the state.
So finally, at a time when affordability is dominating the campaign platforms of both candidates for governor, you've seen the campaign ads where they're talking about energy rates and affordability, and the assembly is up for re-election. What advice would you give all candidates in terms of pursuing burdensome lawsuits as policy, such as this one that we're talking about?
I would encourage them to make sure they're taking a look at private causes of action, and even in legislation like this, to make sure that it's not burdensome on companies. We need to promote a fair, just, and affordable legal system that's also predictable. Bills like this, like the Climate Superfund Act, don't allow for that.
Well, you've certainly given us a lot to think about, and hopefully our lawmakers and our candidates will do the same. Elissa, thank you so much for being with us, and we hope you'll visit again.
Thank you for having me.
I'm happy to be joined by Rich Henning, President of the New Jersey Utilities Association. Rich, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is actually a great opportunity for us to kind of talk about some important issues that the state is facing.
Yeah, and New Jersey's utility providers, they play an important role in delivering energy to homes and businesses. But many New Jerseyans might not realize that they aren't the ones who are actually setting the prices on our electric bills. So before we start, could you just quickly give us a 101 on what impacts our electricity prices?
Do you know, the average customer, yourself, myself, they get a bill, comes in the mail, or they get it now electronically. And there are two parts to that bill. The first part is actually the power that gets produced, and that's the power that goes across the grid, across states, and is then utilized, brought to you by the utility. So there's two parts of that bill. One is the power production. The utilities are not involved in that, but we pass that through on the bill. The second part is the distribution cost. That's the cost to bring the power in to your home. It's the wires, it's the transmission, it's all the things you need to basically do everything that you do with electric every day.
Like, to keep the lights on.
Keep the lights on, get your cup of coffee in the morning. All of that stuff basically is from the power that gets distributed by the utilities.
So now in New Jersey, as you know, we have very steep rises in electricity prices, 20%, even more in some cases. Why has that happened here over the past year?
We are in an area right now that is kind of where supply and demand are kind of going past each other. Mm-hmm. For years, probably decades, over the past few decades, we've actually seen power usage, the demand from customers and from businesses, sort of stay even, right? So there hasn't been a need to produce more power. But now what we're seeing with the advent of electric vehicles, with the advent of artificial intelligence and the use of that by business, we're now starting to see that the power needs, both from a business and from the public, are going up. And since there really hasn't been new generation, that supply and demand curve are actually inversing. They're coming up with a if you will, a scenario where it may be that we have to certainly produce more power to meet the demands that are coming from customers.
Well, so if we haven't kept up with the demand, a question people are asking, why can't utilities just go out and build more power plants?
Back in the late 90s, the state looked to see if they could try to reduce the generation costs for power. So what they did was they took utilities out of the picture, and they went on the marketplace for power generation. And that's why you have that two-tier cost when it comes to you in your bill.
Right.
One is power generation, and the other is the distribution. So utilities are only involved, if you will, in the distribution of the power, not in the generation piece of the power.
So talk to me about the state and the Energy Master Plan and the laws that the governor and the administration have created, and mandates in what kind of energy our state is producing, like renewables. How does that impact the overall cost of electricity supply and impact supply and demand that we're seeing right now?
That's a big question. It's a very big question because as a nation, as a state, and many other states, we've been trying to look for a clean energy future. Mm-hmm. As part of that clean energy future, we've put some emphasis on generating wind power, which unfortunately did not really come to fruition. So the power that we thought we'd be creating there offshore has not, materialized.
Right.
So
we don't have offshore wind right now.
Exactly. And then the solar power, which the state has done a pretty good job at, is also an area that while we've generated, and we're in the top 10 in the whole nation in solar power, we just don't have enough of it to be able to make up for the generation that we really need to move forward. So from a state perspective, there are a number of different options that are out there, that we can look at, whether it's nuclear, carbon sequestration, taking the carbon out of the gas supply that's coming. There are a number of different innovations that are out there that we think, an all-inclusive type of attack, if you will, on bringing up energy and bringing up power generation. If we're able to do that, then we can start, making that demand meet all the supply that's going to be out there.
Well, what are other states, like our neighbors in Pennsylvania and New York, what are they doing to keep up with the demand of AI hubs and other, increasing energy costs?
Pennsylvania is rich in shale gas, and they have embraced shale gas as moving forward as a technology that they want to be able to use to move forward. New York has not, and New York is basically sort of in that same situation that New Jersey's in, where they're buying power on the marketplace. Pennsylvania is actually probably more of a power producer as a state. Certainly, and New Jersey takes some of that power from just not from Pennsylvania, but through the entire market. So a lot of states have very different ideas on how to be able to generate power. what's allowable in terms of their allowance of clean energy versus existing fuels like natural gas. Coal power has been gone drastically down, and it's probably one of the number one prime reasons that we face such a change in the demand and the supply stature, because we've closed so many coal plants, but we have not really built up the rest of the power generation to meet what we've lost.
So if New Jersey stopped restricting energy generation to only renewables and allowed more natural gas generation to come onto the market, would that be a way to lower our energy bills?
We think that the best way to try to attack this system right now, which is marketplace that is geared toward these independent power producers who put power out on the marketplace and then price it. All right, and they price it according to what they believe it costs them to put the power out there. We believe the answer to that is a number of things. We need to look at all of the different innovations that are there. We have in New Jersey $18 billion in our natural gas system, and there are technologies now to capture the carbon out of that and make that a cleaner fuel. So we do believe that gas has to be, certainly not on an interim basis, but even on a long-term basis as technology gets better, can be one of those technologies that we utilize. Nuclear is all the rave and all the discussion now. And it looks like we should be certainly taking a very strong, hard look at that from a state perspective. We already have 3 nuclear plants that basically produce nearly all of our clean energy here in New Jersey. So there are technologies out there that we should be taking advantage of and looking at and saying, hey, this looks like the technology that we need to move forward with, so it helps us kind of solve the supply and demand problem that we face right now.
Yeah, it's a true all of the above approach, as you say. And, carbon capture does work very well in other states, so it would be interesting if New Jersey embraces that going forward. This is a question I ask everybody. PJM, the grid operator, that name we've never heard about a couple years ago or even last year, but now it's become a political football that some critics are saying, they're responsible for driving up the costs, and PJM is the grid operator. Do you believe that is the case, that it is PJM's fault that our energy prices are surging right now?
PJM is basically just setting the market. The market itself is really the independent power producers that are out there. They're the companies that produce the power. They're the ones who put the sale price out there. PJM established it this year in terms of at least the highest it could go. But PJM, like the Board of Public Utilities, they're a regulatory body. And it's their job to help, if you will, help run that marketplace. But the market's still really the demand and the supply of the independent power producers. And they're the ones, if you will, over the last 2 years that have seen their stock prices increase. As you can well imagine, since prices have gone up 20% this year, and then it was at least 5 to 10% last year. So they've seen a great increase in price for their product over the last couple of years, and we really need those independent power producers to be producing more power, to put shovels in the ground so that we have that power that we can rely on, and we can basically solve that supply-demand dilemma,
right,
and that will drive down prices.
Absolutely. So last question. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but do you expect, come in the next administration, whoever wins, New Jersey's retail bills, will they stabilize, or is volatility just the new normal for us?
First of all, would we ever feel like we were going to be sitting here talking about electric prices being like a number one issue in the state of New Jersey? I certainly didn't think that would ever happen in my lifetime. But I think when we look at this and we put our best foot forward and we realize that we need to be all in this, all together, which includes those independent power producers, because they're part of that solution. And as we look and open the doors and get everybody involved, yes, I do believe that we will solve this. We have to solve it, right? On behalf of our customers, on behalf of the state, on behalf of the businesses, we have to solve this problem.
Well, I think New Jersey ratepayers will be very happy to hear you say that. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I hope you'll come back.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeanette. And I look forward to coming back.
That's all for today. Thanks for joining us.